I think the biggest one is the idea that new forms of user interface are emerging. So I primarily mean voice as an interface and chat. If we look at voice, Google is now doing national advertising for Google Now and showing people how to use voice as an interface. That's a kind of a new development that they would treat it with such maturity and such levels of exposure. And I think that long term, if it continues, it has an interesting side effect, because what it means is that you won't really need to use apps to get jobs done or to find information. If you're using Google Now or Siri, why would you use an app to find that information? Why would you even install one to find the right information or to complete a task? So that's kind of pretty fundamentally market changing if it carries on. I'm thinking that actually this sort of thing exists already in sort of prototypical forms. For example, using Siri, you can identify a piece of music through Shazam, but not actually use the Shazam app. So again, that might mean that a lot of brands become redundant, a lot of apps themselves, and for users it'll mean a lot less sort of swiping around, trying to remember things, and you'll just have this interface that you can ask almost anything of. That's a pretty big change. As we've seen on the related note, that Facebook is now trying to get into the chat market, the chat as primary interface for completing, again, almost any task. That's pretty new, and if it works, again, pretty fundamental change. I think probably the other biggest and more kind of worrying development for businesses is Apple getting into the ad blocking market. That's very new. I think it's very understandable from their point of view. They probably see ads as very detrimental to the user experience, and I think they're right. So it means that a lot of businesses will inevitably have to change their business model into something perhaps a bit more mature than ads. We've seen that ad market growing and growing to the point where it's just interfering with everything that users want to do. And I think that Apple knows that as that user experience gets worse, it starts to damage them as a brand, and the same for Google. So I think we're going to have to see a lot of businesses really change their ways and think of more creative ways of getting revenue. And I think there's a bit of a blocker there because there's no micropayments ecosystem at the moment. In fact, I think Google are experimenting with that at the moment. So there's no easy way for me to sort of credit a piece of content with a smaller amount of money. And I'd like to be able to do that, but there's no easy way for us to kind of read an article. We might not necessarily ever go back to that channel or to that creator, but we want to be able to kind of let them continue creating content that we like. And there's nothing really that sustains them very well other than ads. So I think those are the kind of big trends in mobile that we saw last year.